This story is the story of my neighbor's life. They almost experienced the destruction of the household, and their poor economy after the husband's infidelity occurred. Here is the story. His name is Odex. He is a pickup car driver who is a delivery person to shop at a shopping center in our village. Our village is indeed in remote mountains, and there are still few of the villagers who have cars, so we need a pickup car to go to a shopping center where the location is far from our village. Odex is a very diligent and hard-working person, as well as honest in his work. Odex has never taken the goods left in the passenger's car. Even Odex is willing to go around the village again to ask for the passengers left behind. Odex also likes to communicate well with anyone, as well as polite and friendly. Long story short, Odex got a passenger of a woman who had a beautiful body and was younger than his wife. The woman was named Tuszi. Tuszi is actually also our neighbor, but the existence of her house is a little further away from our environment. Tuszi is not from our village. Tuszi is an immigrant. Tuszi married a man in our village, but because their family is a poor family, Tuzzi's husband was forced to leave the village to migrate to the city of Surabaya. The long-distance relationship between Tuszi and her husband made Tuszi feel lonely, and a deep sexual thirst, as well as the state of her poor little family, made Tuszi ambitious to look for wealth in an inappropriate way, namely by approaching this pickup driver named Odex. The life of the Odex family is indeed richer and looks prosperous in terms of finances, because Odex is a friendly and polite person towards everyone. Tuszi starts to take advantage of her beautiful body and starts teasing Odex to establish a secret relationship. Tuszi often sends messages via WhatsApp during the outside hours of Odex's work. Tuszi is not even ashamed to tell about her strong desires that are sexually thirsty because of her husband who is far away in Surabaya. The friendly Odex took a serious response to Tuzzi's story. Odex began to feel sorry for Tuszi, until when Tuszi sent a photo of his body to Odex to show Tuzzi's thirst for sexual matters. Odex, who realized that his wife is not as beautiful as Tuszi, and Tuszi is the type of woman who is sexy, much younger in age. Finally Odex began to be tempted by Tuszi, and Odex began to often meet Tuszi secretly, until Tuszi began to offer to check in at one of the lodging in the city, which was quite far from our village. Upon arrival at the inn, Tuszi and Odex met and booked a room for that sexual thirsty Tuszi. Odex didn't want to throw the opportunity away. Odex was eager to enjoy Tuzzi's body that still looked like the girl. After entering the inn's room, Odex immediately kissed Tuzzi's lips, which looked seductive. Tuszi devoured Odex's lips and started to take off Odex's clothes from Odex's pants to clothes. Tuszi then sucked Odex's dick excitedly. Odex really enjoyed it. Then Odex replied by undressing Tuszi and started to explore Tuzzi's whole body until Tuszi was wet inside. Odex started to put his finger in Tuzzi's pubic hole, then his Tuszi sighed loudly until Tuszi found an orgasm. They enjoyed the sex game until the morning, then they returned to the village. The game didn't get there. Tuszi, who had bad intentions towards Odex, began to carry out missions to extort Odex's treasures. Tuszi promised to satisfy Odex more in sexual but by asking for a little money in return. Odex gives a little money to Tuszi, but this is a trick for Odex, because the more Odex is satisfied with his lust, the more Tuszi often invites him to have sex. Tuszi asks for more and more rewards. From asking Odex to buy a motorbike and several hundreds of millions of other money, to asking to buy a car. Odex, which is easy to use and tease, obeys all Tuzzi's wishes, until Odex sells several plots of land for all Tuzzi's requests. Odex also borrows money at a bank. Until in the end Odex's property began to be eroded and Odex got a new problem because his wife at home was increasingly suspicious of Odex's behavior, which often didn't bring money after going to work, to sell hectares of land, but the debt was getting bigger. The affair between Odex and Tuszi, who walked for more than 3 years, was finally exposed by his wife, but what can all the power have happened? The possessions, money, hectares of land have now disappeared and Tuszi has also left our village. Now the Odex family has to bear the burden of debt, which is hundreds of millions to the bank. In order for Tuzi's extortion to be disguised, Tuszi occasionally still meets Odex to relate like husband and wife. Even though Tuszi is no longer living in our village, Tuszi still takes the time to satisfy her lust for Odex. Odex, who had already entered the abyss of destruction, remained unconscious. Odex still admired Tuszi and treated Tuszi as a prima donna woman. Tuzi's body is so beautiful it can't be forgotten by Odex, even though Odex has been squeezed and his treasure is taken for Tuszi. The affair between them was scattered until the entire villagers heard, but the two of them remained in a relationship secretly. Sometimes Tuszi doesn't hesitate to tell her sexual action with Odex to Tuzi's friends, as if Tuszi thinks the story of her affair is just an ordinary thing. Yes, of course, Tuszi still feels happy and proud of his actions, because Tuszi is able to extort wealth from Odex. We as villagers feel sorry for Odex, who has now become poor and has run out of wealth, debts everywhere. But we also feel surprised at Odex, because Odex remains and still serves Tuszi. Maybe Odex's love and lust have blinded his heart, until Odex is not aware that he has been blackmailed and used by Tuszi. Until now. Their story still continues, but Tuszi rarely comes to our village. That's the story of infidelity between Odex and Tuszi. We can take valuable lessons from this story. Support this channel by like and subscribe. Thank you, and see you in the next stories.